Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. We now know just how many South Korean workers will be coming to Windsor to help build the new EV battery plant, which has the local Korean community ramping up for a warm welcome. Plus, we have an update on the Westcourt Place. The building caught fire 4 years ago, displacing hundreds of residents, but it soon may be ready for occupancy. And some Windsorites are relieved after India's decision to resume electronic visa service for Canadians. There's some clarity tonight on the number of foreign workers that will be needed at Windsor's electric vehicle battery plant. Nexstar Energy tells CBC News up to 900 of the 1,600 technicians needed will be coming from South Korea to help set up the facility. These techs will assemble, install, and test the plant's highly specialized equipment. Their work assignments will range from 3 months to 18 months. After their work is complete, they will return to their home country. Controversy began earlier this week after Windsor police posted on social media that 1,600 people would be coming from South Korea to work at the plant. Politicians at the provincial and federal levels raised concerns about the number of foreign workers, considering $15 billion in subsidies from Canadian taxpayers are being used for the project. Nexstar emphasized these are not permanent full-time jobs at the plant, and they're committed to hiring 2,500 Canadians for full-time work. The techs will not be Nexstar employees. They're employed by an external technology supplier and already have knowledge of the equipment. Despite plenty of political debate around these workers temporarily relocating to Windsor, the city's Korean-Canadian community is treating their arrival as welcome news. The CBC's Dalton Chen has more.
The stage is set for hundreds of South Korean nationals to be temporarily living and working in Windsor next year. Officials say those workers have proprietary knowledge needed during the installation phase of the Nexstar Energy plant. But Windsor-Essex is already home to hundreds of hardworking people with Korean ties.
When I first came to Canada, people didn't really know about Korean culture, but these days, thanks to all the Korean K-pops and all the Korean food and stuff, a lot more people are learning about Korean cultures now. I think with more Koreans moving into Windsor, I think it's going to boost even more. I'm really happy, and I mean, for the business-wise, I'm glad they are my future clients too, so yeah, I'm happy about it.
Kim started Cafe March 21 on Palliser Street in 2015. Last week, the cafe hosted the Republic of Korea's ambassador, who met with Windsor Police to discuss the wave of workers coming from his country. Cafe March 21 isn't the only business in Windsor with a South Korean connection. Our city has a Korean market, Korean eateries, and a Korean community association. The Korean Society of Windsor estimates there are around 800 people in the region of Korean descent. That number is expected to increase quickly in 2024. The region's Realtor Association says the influx could have an impact on the local rental market.
Well, I mean, the reality of that is that they're going to face the same housing shortage that the general market is experiencing now. You know, the rental rates are going to be under pressure, meaning upward pressure, because of lack of supply and more competition. It's a supply and demand situation. So if there's more demand, then there's going to be more pressure on the rates.
Stellantis and LG Energy Solution have said Windsor's EV battery plant is expected to be operational in 2025. Nexstar Energy has committed to hiring 2,500 Canadians for permanent full-time positions. Dalton Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
4 years after a fire at the Westcourt Place building forced everyone out, the city tells CBC News it's getting close to allowing people to live and work in it once again. Dale Molnar has more on what it means for the downtown and previous tenants in the building.
More than 200 tenants were forced to evacuate this 21-story downtown high-rise 4 years ago after a fire in an electrical panel at the parking garage of the Westcourt Place building in 2019. It also forced the relocation of the Provincial Offences Court. Now, Deputy Chief Building Official Rob Vonnie says the owners are coming close to bringing the building up to code.
So they're in the sort of final phases of verifying all the life safety systems in the building that they've refurbished to make sure that those are all operational. And there are still some areas of, that they're still working on some of the suites that they decided to start refurbishing as well, and they're getting close to getting those fixed up as well too. But for our purposes, we're more focusing our efforts on making sure all the life safety systems are in place. So as an example, like fire alarm system, standpipe system, those kind of things.
Vonnie can't say exactly when the building will be ready, and he also doesn't know when the owners will reopen the building. But he says the necessary work should be done soon. Diane Curry is one of the tenants who wants to return.
We're locked and grandfathered in from 4 years ago. Rent prices have skyrocketed the past 4 years. Like our belongings, this was our home, like we were forced out, and I think it's our right to return back to our former homes.
I don't think I'm going to move back, mostly because I'm moving on. But I think there's a lot of people who, especially with the cost of housing now, we had really good rates at Westcourt. We had a really nice place in downtown.
Others say more people living downtown deters criminals and helps boost business.
Not only is it good for downtown, but it's also good for those residents that are probably looking for affordable places to live. Our rent here in Windsor is unaffordable.
More people brings more businesses bring more people. So that's fantastic news, especially given the vacancy rate that we have, in the city as a whole.
And now more than ever, we need places for people to live, and having that building reopened is a significant amount of places for people to live.
Meanwhile, the lawyer representing the tenants in a $35 million lawsuit will soon be asking a judge to rule that the owners of the building were liable for the fire. The lawyer for the owner of the building says they are not commenting at this time, but he says they may be able to say something about the renovations in a couple of weeks. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
A Windsor man is relieved that he will now be able to visit his hometown in India as the country has restored visa service in Canada. We shared his story with you 2 months ago when the Indian government suspended visa operations. It was in retaliation over Prime Minister Justin Trudeau making allegations of Indian involvement in the killing of a Sikh separatist in Canada. It will be Thirupati Bolasetti's first time back in 8 years. He's planning on traveling next month and says he's grateful India's government has considered requests from the community.
Happy, ecstatic, and relieved. It has been, some kind of challenging few months. Would like to thank the Indian government for, considering the request from all the community members and particularly in Canada.
A 5-hour standoff involving a woman with an axe ended in an assault charge. Windsor police say officers were called to a home on Church Street, just off Tecumseh Road West, at around 3 this morning. They located a man with a large cut to his arm. He was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Officers learned he was injured earlier during a confrontation on Assumption Street. When police asked a woman to leave the home, she refused. 5 hours later, the 38-year-old was taken into custody. She's been charged with forcible confinement, assault, and assault with a weapon. The FBI has confirmed that yesterday's dramatic vehicle explosion at the Rainbow Bridge in Niagara Falls, New York, was not linked to terrorism. 2 people were killed and a border guard was injured in the incident. It happened at one of the busiest border crossings between Canada and the U.S. Ethel Musa has the latest.
Police in western New York State are combing through what little is left behind after a fiery car crash Wednesday abruptly closed the Rainbow Bridge, linking Niagara Falls, Ontario to Niagara Falls, New York. The car on the American side of the bridge suddenly accelerated before flying through the air and exploding into flames. For some, thoughts immediately turned to the possibility of terrorism.
The hair in the back of my neck stood up, and I thought, here we go again.
In the chaos that followed, the Prime Minister and the U.S. President were briefed. 3 other nearby crossings were also closed. The FBI now confirms no explosive materials were found at the scene. Local police have taken over what's being called a traffic investigation. But on this American Thanksgiving weekend, a normally busy travel time left this unusual sight. The Rainbow Bridge empty.
All of a sudden, everybody's holiday plans were halted when the borders closed and everybody shuttered.
The holiday would normally pack this Indian restaurant on the Canadian side of the border.
I feel so miserable. I don't know what's happening. Like all of a sudden, the Niagara Falls has nothing in here. This is the weekend when we get so busy. It's Thursday, Thanksgiving weekend, and nobody's around. I'll say by the table wise, yes, 15, 20 tables at this time. I should have it, yes.
Police say the vehicle was incinerated in the crash. The 2 occupants are dead. American media is reporting they were a local Western New York couple. Idil Musa, CBC News, Niagara Falls, Ontario.
In honor of our American friends celebrating Thanksgiving, a look back at Detroit's annual parade in 1987. The weather not as nice as today, which was causing a bit of difficulty. This report was done by former CBC Windsor reporter Joy Malbin.
The 61st annual Thanksgiving Day parade in Detroit. Some have camped out in the cold since 6:30 this morning just to get a good seat.
Is it warm in there?
No, not really.
It's blowing right through the blanket.
But the cold and the wind didn't stop them. This parade is a tradition, even for Canadians.
Booked a day's vacation to take a holiday and bring the kids over. It's just something that we did when I was a kid, and I enjoy doing it for my kids.
Why do you think it's a traditional thing in Windsor to do?
It's an opening day of Christmas holidays, and it brings you to the Christmas festival, I guess, and begins your Christmas shopping, your Christmas spirit.
This year, the parade took a new route along Jefferson and Woodward to highlight Detroit's renovated downtown. But that posed big problems for these balloons. Some couldn't make it under the People Mover overpass. And they had to battle 30-mile-an-hour winds. But for the crowd, it was entertaining enough just to see if they'd make it. And for another year, Santa has officially arrived in Detroit. And for these people, so has the Christmas season.
Beautiful day out there to kick off American Thanksgiving, but those temperatures are about to get cooler. You might even be using the S word. Your weather forecast coming up after the break. The end of November means the year's inflation and the holiday shopping season are coming face to face. Early sales this week have some prices down, but so are family budgets. The CBC's Nisha Patel reports.
This holiday season, shoppers aren't feeling too festive about their finances.
I think we're more mindful of what do we need to give each other as a gift.
So we are only window shopping today, just checking out who's selling what for what discounts.
You can't go shopping the way you used to, right?
From the kids' lengthy wish list to that office secret Santa, spending over the holidays can quickly spiral out of control.
Obviously, those holiday dinners are going to cost quite a bit more this year, as is, domestic travel to visit relatives.
Credit card bills have been climbing. Economists say consumers who are trying not to dig into their savings are choosing to cut back on restaurant meals and vacations.
Canadians are feeling the pressure of high prices and higher interest rates. Experts say that will have a big impact on holiday spending.
According to one survey, the average household is planning to spend about $1,350 overall this season. That's down from more than $1,500 the year before. People also said they are planning to donate less to charity and buy fewer gifts. So retailers like Staples are making an extra effort to attract budget-conscious shoppers.
They're looking for value, they're looking for price consciousness, and they're looking for opportunity to shop early.
Sales started earlier this year and the discounts are deeper, though retailers still promise additional deals on Black Friday. With many shoppers opting to choose cheaper items, businesses are stocking a bigger variety of products.
So what we're trying to do is give them options from end to end across all price ranges.
Alan Kaitas was glad to find some 50% off signs at the mall. He's had to tighten his belt this year.
I mean, with 3 kids, we're trying to make the best out of it, right? With some good deals. Hopefully we can have a good Christmas this year.
Even the inflation Grinch won't dash his holiday spirit. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
If the shopping doesn't get you into the holiday spirit, cooler weather might. Victor Paulo is here with your weather forecast.
Meg, how are you? Hope you're having yourself a great Thursday, Friday Junior, like we like to call it here. Now, a couple of headlines to look forward to for beautiful Windsor. Here's a couple things to note. We are expecting a sunny Friday, no better way to spend your Friday. And we are expecting some cold nights over the next couple of days. And we are expecting some snow on Sunday. But here's what it looks like when you're looking at your average temperatures. Your average high is 6.5. Your average low is minus 0.4 degrees Celsius for Thursday, November 23 for the Windsor and surrounding area. Now, a couple of watches and warnings in the area. The good news is there's no snowstorms coming our way. That's always a great sign. What there is right by the Great Lakes is severe wind warning. So if you are out and about by the water, you want to make sure that severe wind warning will be lasting till about Saturday at midnight. Now, taking a look at a couple of things to note, this is where all that snow is going to be coming off of. But when that snow is all said and done, the good news is it's going to be more of the Saturday, Sunday night is when it's going to be coming in. It's going to be staying pretty far up north when it comes to today and to tomorrow. But when it comes to Sunday, that's where it's going to be pretty heavy. But before we get into later on in the weekend, mix of sun and cloud tomorrow morning. -3 is going to feel like -8 when my little Emmy and your little ones are getting ready for school. Now, when it comes to the 3 and 7 day forecast, here's a couple things to note. We are expecting a beautiful sunny Friday, but it will be a chilly night, -7, followed up by another beautiful sunny Saturday and a -2. But that -2 leading into your Sunday will bring a definitely bit of snowfall our way. Not a lot of snow, but definitely enough to remind us that there is more around the corner when it comes to the upcoming weeks. Now, when it comes to your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, now the great news is a little bit of snowfall will be followed up with 4 straight days of sun and cloud. No precipitation in the near future. But what there is in the near future, once that snow is all said and done, is look at that -4, -5, that -1 on Tuesday. Definitely going to be much more chillier nights coming up in our near future. So you want to make sure when it's nighttime, when you're out and about, you're properly bundled up.
Thanks so much for that, Victor. That's the CBC's Victor Paulo. A Regina neighborhood is putting a holiday spin on a pothole issue. More on that coming up. pause in the fighting between Israel and Hamas will begin tomorrow. Israel and Hamas have agreed to a temporary ceasefire in return for the release of dozens of Israeli hostages. Some Palestinians being held in Israeli prisons will also be released. Qatar has been a leading mediator in negotiations.
Our main objective here is the safety of the hostages, so we can't disclose a lot of information regarding the routes they will be going through, but we will be focusing on making sure that they get there safely.
The first group of 50 Israeli hostages to be freed will be 13 women and children. Officials say 3 Palestinians being held in Israel would be released for every hostage. Qatar says the International Red Cross is helping to facilitate the transfer, and the deal includes more humanitarian aid and fuel for Gaza. About 240 people were taken by Hamas during the October 7th attack on Israel. Ahead of the scheduled pause in fighting, Israel has continued its ground and aerial offensive. Its military says it struck 300 Hamas targets in the last 24 hours. Buses are all about stops, but Edmonton's recently acquired electric vehicles have created more interruptions than expected. That's eliciting frustration on one hand and assurances on the other that green transit is still the way of the future. The CBC's Madeline Cummings reports.
3 years ago, former Mayor Don Iveson said the city's newly purchased electric buses would save the city money.
These super efficient buses will help us long into the future.
But that isn't the case. Those buses have actually been racking up repair costs. Proterra, the company that manufactured the 60 buses Edmonton ordered, filed for bankruptcy protection in the U.S. this summer. And a document filed as part of that case shows the city has had numerous problems with the vehicles, from battery life to software.
There was only 16 of the Proterra buses that were able to go on the road this morning. The rest of them are broken down, and for the most part, they're waiting for parts, and it takes a long time to get the parts for them. We've had some that have been down for over a year waiting for parts.
Drivers have complained to the union.
A small person or a big person has a lot of trouble driving it. They just don't fit in that cab.
The city is seeking more than $1 million in these bankruptcy proceedings, plus assurances that its contracts will be honored. In a statement, a city spokesperson says the city will take all necessary steps to preserve its rights. Proterra didn't respond to a request for comment. Experts say this news is concerning, but it doesn't mean the electric bus industry as a whole is in trouble.
When it comes to zero-emission buses and trucks, the sort of sales globally, I think excluding China, have tripled in the past 5 years. So we're seeing about an annual growth of about 33%.
And the good news for Edmonton is batteries should keep getting better.
There's an enormous amount of money being poured into battery technologies. So it will get there. I think electric buses will be part of our future. Whether it's these buses or other buses, I don't know. But yeah, they'll play a part for sure.
Also playing a role, hydrogen buses, which produce no exhaust pipe emissions. Edmonton is currently testing one hydrogen bus with plans to adapt 2 diesel buses to use the emerging fuel. Madeline Cummings, CBC News, Edmonton.
It may seem like a barometer of how costly mortgages have become in Canada. A woman in Regina is taking a different route to finance her home purchase, crowdfunding. The CBC's Jessie Anton has the story.
So that's my heater in my room. I usually pull it over so I can turn it on in the morning and get some heat.
Lori Dietz takes us inside her $900 a month rental unit in West Regina. With a broken furnace, her son also needs a heater.
It's on the same breaker, so we'll blow the breaker, so we get to take turns having heat.
The single mother and university student has rented since she was 18, never having enough money to put toward a down payment. So now at 47, she's getting creative, asking 500 people for $100 each to buy this $50,000 trailer outright.
I just want to be able to focus on my life and improving and not having the burden of the rental and just feel like you're constantly digging in instead of digging out.
And her 14-year-old son is on the same page.
I won't have to cover up with blankets, I won't have to walk around in sweaters, and I will be able to dress however I'd like in my house.
Dietz was inspired to crowdfund the money after stumbling across an old news story. Back in 2005, a Montreal blogger started trading up a single red paperclip. It eventually led to a house in Kipling, Saskatchewan. Dietz says the tale has been in the back of her mind for years. And now, with her current housing situation, it felt like a good time to put her own twist on it.
In our housing crisis, we need to start thinking outside of the box. We need to find ways to get people permanent homes, and relying on the rental market and the mortgage market, it's not going to get us out.
Saskatchewan's rental rates are among the most affordable in the country, but with immigration-fueled population growth,
vacancy is virtually zero and rental demand continues to persist. Wait lists are still there for 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms.
Being a 60 scoop survivor, life hasn't always been easy for me. It always seems like I'm fighting a struggle, I'm fighting something, and when something new falls on me, it gets really defeating to be like, another thing I have to do. So this would take one last fight off me.
And to make it happen, she's banking on the kindness of others. Jesse Anton, CBC News, Regina.
Like many municipalities, the Regina neighborhood has its own community Christmas tree this year, but its location is a bit unique. It's in the middle of a street above a pothole.
Oh, about a month ago, the little Christmas tree went up and somebody came along and put a stand underneath it and lights and then presents and socks.
The pothole appeared in July, but is due to be fixed early next month, leaving the tree's fate for Christmas Day uncertain. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.